I made the wrong workbench. My name is Spencley, and I built this whole workbench right about a year ago, and at the time, I thought that this thing was going to be the absolute best solution for me in this small garage. This bench is basically just a couple of 2x4s slapped together with an MDF panel on top. And while the overall shape and structure of this bench has been working out just fine, I've encountered a couple issues over the past year. First, since it's made out of super soft pine 2x4 material, it gets banged up really easily and it just looks terrible. Second, I thought that this T-track was something that was going to be a massive improvement because I see everybody on YouTube and Instagram has their work surfaces absolutely covered with this stuff. Personally, I've never really liked this stuff. It's super expensive, gets clogged up with all sorts of junk, and I find myself just clamping stuff to the bench without it. Now, those things aren't really that big of a deal, but one thing that's been driving me absolutely nuts are those drawers that I spent a ton of time building. Want to know the truth about them? They're empty. Yeah, I don't use them at all. The problem is that these drawers are simply too small to hold anything that I would actually want to have right underneath my workbench, like maybe a sander, a jigsaw, or a domino. So let's get rid of this workbench and build something that's actually going to be more appropriate for my needs today on Spencley Design Co.
Am I having deja vu?
Oh wait, I already played the intro, right? It's kind of awkward. I guess I'll just throw some kind of other intro sequence in here. Since these drawers were just too small to actually be useful holding anything in my garage, I'm more than likely just going to get rid of them. However, I'm absolutely keeping all 20 pairs of drawer slides for a future project. But for now, I'm just going to set everything out of the way and figure out what I want to do with those old drawers later. With lumber prices being absolutely crazy right now, and because I wanted a bench that would be a little more heavy duty, I decided to go with one of these Kreg universal bench systems. These benches are pretty much just like a choose your own adventure book. First, you pick the height you want, either a standard or low height. Then you pick the width that you want, ranging from about 14 inches up to about 64 inches. And then you pick the depth that you want, again, ranging from about 14 inches up to about 64 inches. I elected to go with the standard height bench that's 44 inches long and about 28 inches wide for my one-car garage. The box that has the legs in it comes with, obviously, 4 legs, but it also has 4 adjustable foot brackets, a bunch of hardware, and 4 adjustable feet. But I want this to be mobile, so I grabbed these locking casters.
He got money, get it all for him.
I grabbed the 28-inch long rails out of the next box and started laying all the pieces out. And this thing is honestly super easy to put together. Just pop a bolt through the underside, thread on a nut, and then tighten everything down. And while I get the rest of the bolts on, I just want to take a second to thank all my new viewers for checking out my channel. Every view truly makes a difference in helping my small channel grow, and thanks. With those bolts on, you might think that you're good to go.
But I got a news flash for you, Walter Cronkite. You aren't.
So just use a large square and shift the pieces into a perfect 90 before tightening the rest of the bolts. The opposite side goes together the exact same way. The adjustable feet attach to the adjustable leg brackets with a few bolts, but I'm going to be using these locking casters instead. The really cool thing about this whole bench system is how adjustable the feet are. You just pop a bolt in and tighten them down whenever you find the perfect height for your bench. With both of those side assemblies, assembled, I grabbed the 44-inch long rails and attached them to the sides, making sure that everything was perfectly square. Only to realize that I had to awkwardly get the bench onto the floor and trap myself inside during the process. The next day, I came back out of the garage to cut down the material to make up the top surface of the bench. I found this laminate coated MDF, and this stuff absolutely destroyed my hand since it's so sharp on the edges, so I decided to break the edge with a little bit of sanding. Nothing fancy, but it works. To attach the top, Kreg was pretty clever and had these mounting holes drilled out so that you can use a standard pocket hole screw bit to reach all the way through. And bonus points for all those screws being hidden under the table. So at this point, the workbench is finally usable because I have that top all situated and I can actually use my table saw now. But I want to turn my attention to the shelf on the bottom, so let's jump over the table saw and cut down some plywood to make that up. Oh wait, hold on. I have to cut this massive sheet down to a more manageable size first. Alright, that's a lot better. A little awkward struggle, and it's good. Here we go! While I was down here, I figured I'd mount this power strip too. All right, so with that bottom shelf on, I'm going to add some storage here, but before I get to that, let's address some of those questions that I know I'm gonna get. First, why did I go with this specific material for my Outfeed table? On my last Outfeed table, I had a solid MDF top, and it was great. It was heavy, it was sturdy, it didn't warp, but the biggest problem I had with it was that things always stuck to it, and then it got really uneven. I tried sanding all that stuff off, and then it'd still be really uneven from all the sanding. Now with this laminate top, things like glue and finishes aren't gonna stick to it at all. In fact, when I was putting some polyurethane on that bottom shelf, I got it all over this bench, and look how easy it comes up. And second, to be honest with you, my original plan was to buy regular melamine that has that particle board core, kind of like really cheap, crappy IKEA furniture, and that was really what I was gonna buy. However, when I went to my lumberyard, they had this particular piece sitting in like their trash pile.
Trash? No, toys. They're all toys.
And I asked the guy how much he wanted for it, and they gave it to me for free. So I got an entire 4x8 sheet of this like laminate coated MDF for free, so I can't turn that down. The other question that I know I'm gonna get a lot is why didn't I make my Outfeed table level with my table saw if the legs on this workbench are completely adjustable? On my previous workbench, I extended the miter slots from my table saw to the workbench itself, and that worked great. The only problem was things always got caught in there, and while it's not a huge deal, I really just wanted to try something different. So by having this just slightly below the table saw surface, I can use things like my miter gauge without interfering at all with the miter slot. And at the end of the day, if I use this Outfeed table for a couple weeks and then find it really annoying to have it below the surface of my table saw, all I have to do is adjust those legs, raise it up about 1/2 inch, route out those grooves, and keep working. But now let's move over and actually make the storage for underneath the Outfeed table. I really don't think watching me cut down a ton of strips of plywood is all that interesting, nor does it help you actually understand what I'm doing. So instead, let's jump into SketchUp to get a better look. So here's the workbench. One of the things that I frustrate myself with the most, let's jump back into the real world for a second. So like I was saying, one of the things that really frustrates me while I'm building stuff is I grab some tools, maybe like a drill or something, drill a couple holes in something, maybe mark some lines out. I set my tools down, and then I realize I have to make a table saw cut. So I'll come over here, make the cut or whatever, and now my tools are in the way, and it's really frustrating and actually kind of dangerous.
Oh my goodness, what's the procedure?
Now sure, I could absolutely make some sort of auxiliary bench that I put along the back wall, or maybe along this wall here, but it's really just gonna take up a lot of space, and I like to have as much open space as I can. So having that shelf on the bottom is just gonna give me an auxiliary work surface without really taking up any more space. This surface is gonna be the perfect place for storing all those tools that I know I'm gonna need in a future step. Things like my square, my drill, ketchup, and eggs. But enough of that, let's head back into that computer model. So, like I was trying to show you earlier, here's a model of the workbench. I want to keep that bottom shelf open, so I'm going to build some drawers to utilize this otherwise dead space underneath. It's going to be the perfect place to store some larger tools like my circular saw, sander, and my domino and domino tenons. Oh, and at the time of building and filming this, I haven't made any plans because I wasn't sure how much interest there would be for this specific project, but I'll update the description of this video with a link to the plans in the future if I do make them. So if you are interested and you do want the plans, let me know down in the comments. Anyway, hopefully that gives you a better idea of what I'm going for here and also saves you from having to watch me mindlessly cut down a bunch of plywood. So now that I have all the pieces cut down that are gonna make the case of the drawer box underneath the workbench, I'm gonna join them all together. And I know a lot of people hate pocket holes, but it's shop furniture, so who cares? Just put it together and keep moving. This is my first time using this new Kreg pocket hole jig, and I have to say, it's a massive improvement over my old one. It automatically adjusts itself for different material thicknesses, and the dust collection is a lot better too. I don't really use pocket holes a lot, but I have to say this thing's pretty nice. And if you want to learn more about this and all the other tools that I use, I'll leave a link down in the description below. Maybe it's my lack of experience with pocket holes or just overall lack of skill, but I always have trouble with pocket hole screws shifting my work pieces, so I lock everything in place with an unnecessary amount of clamping pressure. Oh, and comment down below if you can guess what song I tried to edit all these drill noises to. Go on. Give it your best shot. I'm just messing around. There wasn't any song. Battery died. Actually, I think the drill died. Yeah, this thing's dead, see? But I'll just use the impact driver. I know people are gonna bash the Ryobi tools, but honestly, the drill worked great for almost 2 years and I really have nothing bad to say about it. I used it like crazy and I ended up sending it in for the warranty replacement, only to be told that it's gonna take 4 to 6 months.
Alrighty then.
Now that I have the outside carcass done, I can turn my attention to making the drawers. Now, I could absolutely install this underneath my bench right now, but I'm actually gonna leave it set aside so that I can make any fine adjustments I need to make to those drawers while it's a lot more accessible. So let's grab some 1/2-inch plywood and cut down some parts for the drawers. So at this point, I have all of my pieces cut down for my individual drawer boxes. However, I don't have a way to attach my bottom panel in place. So the way I designed these drawers was to have a dado run through all of the side pieces to hold that bottom panel in place. And to make sure I don't mess anything up, I've already gone through all of my drawer pieces and marked where that dado is going to go. Now you could absolutely use a router table or something else like that to cut those dados. However, the easiest way for me is gonna be using this dado stack that I'm gonna pop in my table saw. So let's get all those dados cut and then we'll assemble the drawers. I don't know why, but for some reason, I find cutting dados incredibly satisfying. I don't know if it's the sound or what exactly it is, but I genuinely love it. With the drawer parts cut, I can finally fold everything up. Whoops. And with some more unnecessary clamping pressure, fire in all the screws. And with my impeccable lifting form, I slid the cabinet underneath the workbench, used a couple of clamps to hold everything in place, and used a few of those mounting holes on the underside of the rails to thread a few bolts through to secure everything in place. To install the drawers, I'll first start by laying down a few spacer pieces in the cabinet, disassembling the slides, and then placing the outer part of the slide onto that spacer and using a scrap piece of wood to make sure the slide was inset far enough. After firing a few screws to hold it in place, I can slide the inner part of the slide in and get a glimpse of that sweet soft close action.
Ooh, that's nice.
The drawers themselves are also pretty easy to install. Just lay some scrap pieces down to lift up the drawer, then carefully slide the drawer out and attach it with screws, slowly working your way all the way back. Then just remove those spacer pieces and you're all set. Well, except for the drawer fronts. So for those drawer fronts, I picked up these cheap handles and I want to mount them right here. Sure, I could measure out the spacing, but I'm going to use this cabinet hardware jig that had preset markings for different sized drawer pulls. Just clamp it on, drill through the guides, and you're all set. To get the drawer fronts on perfectly, I cut some 1/8 inch spacers to use on all sides of the drawer front, and then I can clamp everything together. From the back side, I can countersink some screws to hold the drawer front in place and remove those clamps. Back on the front, I'll drill out the hole so that it goes all the way into the drawer itself, and then countersink a spot for the handle hardware. Tighten everything by hand, and you're all set. You could put anything you want down here, but this is where I'm going to put my domino and the domino tenons. And I know I'm going to get a lot of questions about these drawer slides. They're really not anything special, and they're actually a size that's too big for the drawer. But if I were to get the proper size slides, it would interfere with the lid staying open. So by buying extra long slides, I'm able to get the sustainer all the way out and easily access everything inside. I almost forgot to show you the other side. It's just the same thing but with taller drawers for my sander and circular saw.
Thanks so much for checking out the video. If you'd like to help support the show like some of these folks here, consider picking up some exclusive merch like stickers, t-shirts, and mugs by clicking that Patreon link up above. And if you'd like to stay up to date with all the future projects that I release here on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss anything I put out. So once again, thanks so much for stopping by, and I'll see you on the next one.